I'd now like to introduce you to Diina Shituula. Diina is going to be doing her MBA next year. She studied in South Africa. She played for Cape Town Roses, one of the top sides locally, and she's now a committee member of the Namibian Women's Professional Soccer League. Welcome, Diina. Diina, what are the main regions where women's football is strong in Namibia?
Hi, George. Thank you for having me. So, from my perspective, the regions where football is strong in Namibia is the central region because it's the most developed in terms of football. And we've obviously have been playing football for a longer time within this region. And obviously, it's where the capital city is situated as well. We all know that Namibia has a very small population where the majority of people do live in Windhoek, which is in the central region. And then another region where football is quite strong is the Orongo region. That is Swakopmund as well. They have the same setup in terms of football. They have quite a few academies, and they've also been developing football for quite a long time. The other regions are still catching up.
What do you find are the biggest problems running a female football club in Namibia?
The first thing is definitely the financial support. I know that FIFA's done such a great job quite recently with the trying to support women's football, just in general, women's football more financially. And that obviously trickles down to the football associations within the different countries. So I think just even not just running a women's football academy, just running a women's football club, it's always the financial support that we really, really need, that we don't really get a lot of. And then because when the resources needs to be shared, the men always come first and the women always get, the little bits that are left. And even in terms of, if you look at women's football and men's youth football, or the male youth football, the youth football for men still get more funding than the women's football. And then I think just in general, when you look at the players also need a lot of support. So if you look at the salaries, the wage gaps between women's football and men's football, in Namibia, we still don't have a professional league for women. So there's no female footballer who can actually live off being a football player in Namibia. And then just general support from family and friends. I mean, there's still a stigma around women playing football. It has improved over the years because of marketing, and obviously the more people see women playing football, the less they will think, they won't have those negative ideas about women playing football. But just people don't really think it's important for women to play football, and we really need to change that narrative so that people can actually support us.
How do you feel about playing in the Women's Soccer League?
Our women's football league, the one that I play, is the top league in Namibia for women. So obviously, I'm quite happy to be playing in the top league with the best players. So I'm playing against the best players in the country. Look, it's always fun to play football, whether you're playing on a social scale or whether it's more competitive. But I'm quite a competitive person, and I think I'm still physically fit. So it makes me really, really happy to be playing against the best football players in the country.
How important is the funding by the investors and by the club owners in the Women's Soccer League?
Our league would not exist without funding and without significant funding, because, as you know, Namibia is also a very small population. We are unable to sustain our league without additional funding, because we aren't able to attract huge fees when it comes to spectators watching us. It's really not enough. We're only a population of 450,000 in Windhoek, and we don't have a lot of people that are coming out to watch our games. So it's really difficult to have a self-sustaining league. So we do rely heavily on financial support, not only for the league but for the clubs as well. Otherwise, we really wouldn't be able to exist without additional financial support.
Are there any problems in getting good infrastructure for women's football teams, clubs, and academies?
This really relates to the previous question. It's definitely the funding. There's no way that we would be able to sustain just a team without significant funding. And then obviously, when you look at infrastructure, in terms of our country, Namibia, we already have a problem with infrastructure just for football in general. And as I said before, the women really get the back end of importance when it comes to football. So most of the stadiums and most of the fields are sort of allocated to men's football, and men's football clubs and teams have a better financial standing than the women's clubs and teams. So they are able to pay and sustain their fields and their stadiums. And even if I look at something like our national stadium, I don't know if you're aware, but FIFA has just declared our national stadium unfit for any of our international games. So even if you look at a national level, we have a problem with proper infrastructure and proper fields. And if women are already at the back end when it comes to receiving the proper attention that they need in terms of women's football and the development of football. So if you can see that on a national level, it's already a problem, you can just imagine how much worse it is for women's football, for women's clubs, and for women's teams.
What do you think about the quality and the challenges of the Namibian Football Association's Women's League?
I think our biggest problem is that our football association, like all the other football associations in the world, focus more on men's football. But if I look at countries like, say, for example, like the United States of America, where although the men are still getting paid more, but the women are actually doing a lot better in women's football or in football, it shouldn't be that way. So I think the biggest challenge is that we need women running women's football. It's difficult where we fall under the umbrella of an association that is run by men, because I feel like an association that is run by men concentrates mostly on men's football. So I would like to see FIFA changing things in a way that women are able to run women's football and have the same amount of power that the men have in their associations to run women's football the way that we think women's football should be run. And in that way, we can give more attention to the challenges that we face in women's football, apart from finances, because I think finances is one of the biggest things. If FIFA maybe changes the way that the FA, or how money is received by the FA and how money is spent by the different football associations in terms of concentration on women's football and men's football, I think that would be a good starting point.
What is your hope when it comes to the future development of female football in Namibia? What would you like to see in the next 10 years?
We really need to concentrate on the challenges that we do have. As I mentioned before, if we let women run women's football, and if the associations let us run women's football and concentrate on things that women's football are facing, rather than the association trying to run both men's and women's football, I think we have different challenges. And I think if we have people that are concentrating on the different challenges for men's football and women's football, that's something I'd like to see. For example, grassroots football. And when I say grassroots football, I don't mean the level of professionalism. I mean starting girls football from the ages of 6. We don't have that here in Namibia yet. We don't have a league for under 12s. So I would really like to see us start grassroots football and developing girls at a young age, so that when they are older, we're focusing on different things in terms of football. And that's just the playing side. I'd like to see more of a financial injection into women's football from the different associations and from FIFA as well. I see they have done a great job in increasing that. The World Cup as well, we've increased the amount of teams that can participate. We've increased the amount of, and specifically for me, it was nice to see that the African teams, we can send more African teams to the World Cup. CAF has increased the amount of competitions. So we'd also like the opportunities to play more football, opportunities to be able to make a living of football. So definitely a financial injection, and just the development of women's football. I'd like to see a great change there.
Diina, thank you very much. We wish you everything of the best with your MBA next year, and we look forward to the role that you will continue to play in the development of women's football, both in Namibia and in Southern Africa. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great being on the show. And I'd like to see what we can do further to improve the development of women's football here in Namibia.